Now let's look at the incentive-based model. As we have discussed earlier, mining is the process used to secure the network by validating the computations, collecting them to form a block, verifying them, and broadcasting it. Ethereum also uses an incentive-based model for block creation. Every action in Ethereum requires crypto fuel or gas. Gas points are used to specify the fees inside of Ether for ease of computation using standard values. Gas points allow for cryptocurrency independent valuation of the transaction fee and computation fees. Ether, as a cryptocurrency, varies in value in the market swings. But the gas points do not vary. Ethereum has specified gas points for each type of operation. Mining process computes gas points required for execution of a transaction. If the fees specified and the gas point in the transaction are not sufficient, it is rejected. This is similar to mailing a letter with insufficient postage. The letter will not be delivered if it had insufficient postage. The gas points needed for execution must be in the account balance for the execution to happen. If there is any amount left over after the execution of transaction, it is returned to the originating account. So far, we looked at the gas-related items in the transaction. Now let's look at the gas-related items in a block. Gas limit and gas spent. Gas limit is the amount of gas points available for a block to spend. For example, if a block specifies a limit of 1,500,000 units of gas and a basic Ether of transaction fees 21,000, this particular Ethereum block can fit about 70 plain Ether transactions. If we add smart contract transaction also into this block, that usually requires more gas, and the number of transactions for this block will likely be lower. So, summarizing, any transaction in Ethereum, including transfer of Ethers, requires fees or gas points to be specified in the transactions. Miners are paid fees for security, validation, execution, and smart contracts. As well, for creation of blocks, we represented in a high-level view of Ethereum blockchain. Now let's look at the algorithms and techniques. Two techniques are predominantly used for securing the chain and for efficient validation and verification: hashing and asymmetric key encryption. These techniques depend on several complex proven algorithms. Recall that blockchain decentralized network participants are not necessarily known to each other. Credentials cannot be checked by the conventional means such as verifying who you are with your driver license. Participants can join and leave as the chain as they wish. They operate beyond the boundaries of trust. Given in this context, how do you identify the peer participants? How do you authorize and authenticate the transactions? How do you detect forked and faulty transactions? We can do these things by using public key cryptography algorithm. Let's begin by examining simple symmetric key encryption. The same key is used for encryption and decryption, so it is called asymmetric symmetric key. Example, Caesar encryption is the simplest one with alphabets of a message are shifted by a fixed number, and this number is called the key. In example, we can see that the message is hello Mirosi, and the function is shift by 3 in an alphabet to the right, and the encrypted message is KHWRPLURPL. So, public key cryptography address has some issues. Instead of a single secret key, it employs two different keys that take care of both issues of symmetric key encryption. Let lowercase b and uppercase b be the private public key pair for the participant Bob. Let lowercase a and uppercase a be the pair of key for the participant Alice. Public key is published, private key is kept safe and locked, typically using a passphrase, and the pair of works as follows. Encrypting function holds two properties with a key pair. The public key, private key, has the unique quality that even Though a data is encrypted with a private message, it can be decrypted with a corresponding public key and vice versa. Now let's look at an example, authenticating the sender and the receiver. We will examine just one use of asymmetric key encryption. Let's say Bob wants to transact with Alice. Instead of sending just a simple message, a participant in Bob will send a transaction data encrypted by his private key and then encrypted by Alice's public key. Alice will first decrypt the data using its own private key, then use Bob's public key to decrypt assigned transaction data. This ensures that only Alice can decrypt and receive the data, and that only Bob could have sent the data. A popular implementation of public-private key is reverse Shamir-Adleman RSA algorithm. Common applications of RSA is passwordless user authentication, for example, for accessing a virtual machine on Amazon Cloud. Though RSA is very commonly used in many applications, blockchain need a more efficient and stronger algorithm. Efficiency is a critical requirement since public key pair is frequently used in many different operations in blockchain protocol. Elliptic curve cryptography ECC family of algorithms is used in the Bitcoin as well as Ethereum blockchain for generating the key pair. Why ECC not RSA? ECC is stronger than RSA for a given number of bits. Did you know that 256 bit of ECC key pair is equal to the strength of about 3072 bits of RSA key pair? Both Bitcoin and Ethereum uses ECC-based algorithms for their encryption. Now let's look what is hashing. A hash function or a hashing transformations and maps an arbitrary length of input data value to a unique fixed value length. Input data can be document, tree data, or a block data. Even a slight difference in the input data would produce a totally different hash output value. The following are two basic requirements of a hash function. The algorithm chosen for the hash function should be a one-way function and it should be a collision-free. For exhibit extremely low probability of collision, the first requirement is to make certain that no one can derive the original items hashed from the hash value. The mathematics behind the hash function ensures that there is no way to derive the original digital media content from its generated, thus making the hash function one way. The second requirement is to make sure that the hash value uniquely represent the original items hashed. There should be extremely low probability that two different datasets map to the same hash value. These requirements are achieved by choosing a strong algorithm such as secure hash and by using appropriately large number of bits in the hash value. How are hashes used with mining? In a blockchain, the notion of mining requires miners to solve a problem with a non-partial input derived from the latest state of blockchain to create hash target. The miners must try to guess the digital input that can create the hash target, thus solving the problem. As a hash is one of the way miners must try to many combination of input to create the hash target and solve the problem which uses up a computer's resources like CPU and memory. The first miner to answer the problem which. Now let's look what is Merkle trees. Merkle trees are an essential part of blockchain for data integrity. Each block in the blockchain can contain multiple transactions which each contain data. In this example, there are 4 transactions TX 1, 2, 3 and 4. Each of the 4 transaction data is passed through a hash function generating full unique hashes for each hash transaction. Pairs of hashes are then combined and passed through the hash function again. This process generates 2 separate unique hashes which are each based on the combination of 2 hashes relating to 2 transactions. The two hashes are then combined and passed through the hash function again, This results in a single root hash forming a complete Merkle tree. The Merkle tree allows for the detection of any changes to any data within the transaction of a block by simply rerunning through the process of for each transaction and comparing the results to the original root hash. When these are used, when we have fixed number of items to be hashed, such as items in a block header, and we are verifying the composite block integrity and not the individual item integrity, we use symbol hash. When the number of items differ from block to block, for example, number of transactions, number of states, number of recipients, we use the tree structure for computing the hash. In Ethereum, hashing functions are used for generating account addresses, digital signatures, transaction hash, state hash, receipt hash, and block header hash. SHA-3, SHA-256, KCAT-256 are some of these algorithms commonly used by the hash generations in blockchains. Now let's discuss about the transaction integrity. To manage the integrity of a transaction, we need number one, secure a unique account address. We need a standard approach to uniquely identify the participants in the decentralized network. Number two, authorization of the transaction by the sender through digital signing. And number three, verification that the content of the transaction is not modified. We use a combination of hashing and public key cryptography. Let's start with the address of accounts. Addresses of the accounts are generated using public key private key pair. Step 1. At 256 random number is generated and designated as the private key. Kept secure and locked using a passphrase. Step 2. An ECC algorithm is applied to the private key and to get a unique public key. This private public key pair. Step 3. Then a hashing function is applied to the public key to obtain account address. The address is shorter in size, only 20 bytes or 160 bits. Now that we have the account address, let's look at the transaction initiated by this address. A transaction for transferring assets will have to be authorized. It has to be non-reputable and unmodified. They first examined the digital signing process and then apply it to the transaction. Data is hashed and encrypted. This is the digital signature. The receiver gets the original data and the secured hash digitally signed. Receiver can recompute the hash of the original data received and compare it with the received hash to verify the integrity of the document. Now consider the transaction to be that data. Step number 1. Find the hash of the data fields of the transaction. Step number 2. Encrypt that hash using private key of the participant originating the transaction, thus digitally signing the transaction to authorize and making the transaction non-reputable. Step number 3. This hash just added to the transaction. It can be verified by other decrypting it using the public key of the sender of the transaction and recomputing the hash of the transaction. Then compare the computed hash and the hash received at the digital signature. If that is a match, accept the transaction, otherwise reject it. Note that for the complete transaction verification, the timestamp, nonce, account balances, and sufficiency of fees are also verified. Now let's look how we secure blockchain. As we discussed before, some of the main components of the Ethereum block are the header, the transactions, including the transaction hash or the transaction root, and the state radio booth, the state hash or the state root. Integrity of the block is managed by assuring that the block header contents are not tampered with, the transactions are not tampered with, the state transactions are efficiently computed, hashed, and verified. Remember, the blockchain is supposed to be an immutable record. In Ethereum, the block hash is the block of all the elements in the block header, including the transaction root and the state root hashes. It is computed by applying a variant of SHA-3 algorithm called KCAC and all the items in the block header. A typical block has 2000 transactions in Bitcoin and about 100 transactions Ethereum. We need an efficient way to detect tampering and validate the transaction efficiently. Hashes transaction in a block are processed in a tree structure called a Merkle tree hash that we had discussed in the earlier. Merkle tree hash are also used for computing the state root hash since only the hash of the change states from block to block have to be recomputed. It is also used for receipt root hash root. Remember that advantages are flat versus tree representation. If any transaction is to be verified, only one path to the tree has to be checked. You don't have to go through the entire set of transactions. Smart contract execution in Ethereum results in state transitions. Every state change requires state root hash recomputation. Instead of recomputing hash for the entire set of states, only the affected path of the Merkle tree needed to be recomputed. In the example, you can see when the state 19 is to be changed to 20, which results in the path including 31, 32, and the state root hash 64 to be recomputed. Only that path is recomputed, not the entire tree. Now let's move on to how the block hash computation. Block hash in Ethereum is computed by first computing the state root hash, transaction root hash, and then receipt root hash, shown at the bottom of the block ahead. These roots and all the other items in the header are hashed together with variable nodes to solve the proof of work puzzle. Block hashes serve two important purposes: verification of the integrity of the block and the transactions, formation of the chain link by embedding the previous block hash in the current block header. If any participant node tampers with the block, its hash value changes resulting in the match of the hash values by rendering the local chain of the nodes in an invalid state. Any future blocks initiated by the node would be rejected by other miners due to hash mismatch. This enforces the immutability of the chain. Summarizing, a combination of hashing and encryption are used for securing the various elements of the blockchain. Private public key pair and hashing are important foundation concepts in decentralized networks that operate beyond trust boundaries. Now let's look the security and protocols. First, the trust essentials. Let us understand trust using a common everyday scenario in a centralized system such as an airport system. Say you want to fly out of the Kochi airport. The airport authority would have pre-established a secure environment for the people to arrive and depart. This established the base trust. Then there is additional trust once you enter and your passport and travel documents are verified, validated, and your baggage is screened. When more trust in you is established when the airline staff checks your boarding pass at the gate and you enter the aircraft to fly. Now let's consider a decentralized system. There is nobody checking your credentials and verifying that you are trustworthy. Then how do you do it? Let's examine how this will help address the trust issues in a blockchain. Similar to our airport scenario, trust in a decentralized blockchain is also about securing, validating, verifying, and making sure resources needed for the transaction execution are available. This is accomplished by securing the chain of specific protocols by validating the transaction and blocks for tamper proofing, verifying, and availability of resources for transaction and executing and confirming the transactions. The trust trail is defined by these operations: validate transaction, verify gas and resources, gather transactions, execute transaction to get a new state, form the block, work towards consensus, finalize the block by the bidder, and everyone add the block to their chain and confirm the transactions. We will examine each of these steps. Steps 1 and 2 are validate transaction and check resources. In the case of a Bitcoin, there are 20 criteria that have to be checked before a transaction is validated, as discussed earlier. Similarly, in the case of Ethereum transactions, the syntax, the transaction signature, timestamp, nonce, gas limit, and sender account balance are validated before execution. The fuel or gas points and other resources available for smart contract execution are also validated. Transaction signatures and hash are also verified. Step number 3 is execute transactions. Merkle tree has hash of validated transaction is computed. This is in Ethereum. This is the transaction root of the block header. All the miners execute the transaction for either transfer as well as for execution of smart contracts. The state resulting from transaction execution are used in computing the Merkle tree hash of the states. The state root of the block header, the receipt root of the block header is also computed. Now we will continue to talk about the next step in TrustRate, the consensus protocol. The consensus algorithm is a procedure through which all the peers of the blockchain network reach a common agreement about the present state of the distributed ledger. The consensus protocol makes sure that every new block that is added to the blockchain is one and only version of the truth that is agreed upon by all the nodes in the blockchain. The blockchain consensus protocol consists of some specific objectives such as coming to an agreement, collaboration, cooperation, equal rights to every node, and mandatory participation of each node in consensus protocol. Thus, a consensus algorithm aims at finding a common agreement that is a win for the entire network. Now we will discuss various consensus algorithms and how they work. The first one is proof of work. This consensus algorithm is used to select a miner for the next block generation. Bitcoin uses this proof of work consensus algorithm. The central idea behind this algorithm is to solve a complex mathematical puzzle and easily give out a solution. This mathematical puzzle requires a lot of computational power, and thus the node who solves the puzzle as soon as possible gets to mine the next block. The second one is practical Byzantine fault tolerance, PBFT. It is a consensus algorithm introduced in the late 90s by Barbara Liskov and Miguel Castro. PBFT was designed to work efficiently in an asynchronous, that means no upper bound on when the response to the request will be received. In such systems, it is optimized for low overhead time. Its goal was to solve many problems associated with already available Byzantine fault tolerance solutions. Next is proof of stake. This is the most common alternative to proof of work. Ethereum has shifted from proof of work to proof of stake consensus. In this type of consensus algorithm, instead of investing in expensive hardware to solve a complex puzzle, validators invest in the coins of the systems by locking up some of their coins as stake. After that, all the validators will start validating their blocks. Validators will validate blocks by placing a bet on it if they discover a block which they think can be added to the chain. Based on the actual blocks added in the chain, all the validators get a reward proportionate to their bets and their stake increase accordingly. In the end, a validator is chosen to, to generate a new block based on their economic stake in the network. Thus, proof of stake POS is encourages validators through an incentive mechanism to reach to an agreement. The fourth one is proof of burn. With POB, instead of investing into expensive hardware equipment, validators burn coins by sending them to an address from where they are irretrievable. By committing the coins to an unreachable address, validators earn a privilege to mine on the system based on a random selection process. This burning coins here means that validators have a long-term commitment in exchange for their short-term loss. Next is proof of capacity. In the proof of capacity consensus, validators are supposed to invest their hard drive space instead of investing in expensive hardware or burning coins. The more hard drive space validators have, the better are their chances of getting selected for mining the next block and earning block reward. Next is proof of elapsed time. POET is one of the most various consensus algorithms which chooses the next block using fair means only. It is widely used in permission blockchain networks. In this algorithm, every validator on the network gets a fair chance to create their own block. All the nodes do so by waiting for the random amount of time, adding a proof of their wait in the block. The created blocks are broadcasted to the network for others' consideration. The winner is the validator, which is the least timer value in the proof part. The block from the winning validator nodes get appended to the blockchain. There is also exist other consensus algorithms like proof of activity, proof of weight, proof of maintenance, least proof of stake, etc. It is therefore important to wisely choose one of one as the best business network requirement because blockchain networks cannot function properly without consensus algorithm to verify each and every transaction that is being committed. Now let's discuss what is forks. If you are interested in cryptocurrencies, you have probably heard something called fork. We have seen a few hard forks already, but what are they exactly? As we have discussed, Bitcoin is a digital currency, and that means that it is implemented with a lot of software. The software is called the Bitcoin protocol, and it establishes the rules to which should agree if they want to use Bitcoin. This includes how large a block is, what reward miners get, how fees are calculated, etc. But just like any software project, development on Bitcoin will never be finished. There is always room for improvement. The Bitcoin developers regularly push out updates to fix issues or to increase performance. Some of these improvements are small, but others fundamentally change the way Bitcoin works. So sometimes it happens that a group of developers disagree with the direction of the Bitcoin is taking. The miners can also disagree because updates to the Bitcoin protocol could reduce their profits. If a group of people are so dissatisfied, they can choose to go their own way and create their own version of protocol and fork the blockchain. So what happens if they do this? Well, Bitcoin consists of two big pieces, the Bitcoin protocol and the blockchain, which stores all the transactions that have happened. If they decide to create their own fork, they start by copying the Bitcoin protocol code and start making their changes. They can do this because Bitcoin is completely open source. After they have implemented their desired changes, they define a point in time at which the fork will become inactive. Active. This is done by specifying a block number. For example, you can say that your fork will go live when the block number 480,000 is published to the blockchain. When that block number is reached, the community is split into two. Some people decide to support the original protocol, while others want to support the fork. Each group then start adding new blocks to the fork they want to support. At this point, both blockchains are incompatible with each other. Because a fork is based on the original blockchain, all transactions are happened on the original blockchain are also happened in the fork. And that means that if you had a certain amount of coins before you fork, you will get the same amount of the new currency. Some people call this as free money, but it all depends on whether or not the fork can attract actual value. We have already seen a quite hard forks. It happened to Bitcoin on August 1st, 2017, when Bitcoin Cash was born, for instance. In this case, the developers couldn't agree on what the new size for a block should be. Some wanted it to go from 1 MB to 2 MB, but others wanted to increase it even further. When matters couldn't be settled, both groups decided to go on their way. Bitcoin has had a few hard forks already, some forks becoming more successful than others. But it's not only the one. Also, Ethereum had a hard fork when it split to Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So, that is essentially what a hard fork is. But there is also something called a soft fork. What is the difference? A hard fork occurs when someone forks Bitcoin and makes it incompatible with the original. If you, however, fork Bitcoin and makes your change compatible, then we call it a soft fork. A subtle difference. So now you know what a hard fork is and why they happen. Because cryptocurrencies are becoming more and more popular, it's safe to say that disagreements will pop up more often and more forks will be created. So that was for this webinar. Thanks a lot for listening me, sharing your time with me.